Welcome to Face2Face. This is a show about change and about what's next. It's a show that wants to ask questions, peel back the layers of our average everyday experience, and go beyond scratching the surface. We interview amazing people with incredible ideas and stories who have done wild, weird, and wonderful things. Remember that imagination shared creates collaboration, and collaboration creates community, and community inspires social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face2Face. So my next interview is with Vaishali Sinha. She's the director of a film called Ask The Sexpert, and it's a delightful film, and it's an important film. It's something you're gonna need to see. It's for a whole lot of reasons. It's at Hot Docs world premiere. It's a film about, it sounds like it's just a film about sex, and it's so not about that. It's about crossing all cultures. It's about relationships. It's about gender disparity. It's about parenting. It's about getting issues out and onto the table. I mean, it's about all those things that we're not, we've been told we're not supposed to talk about. It's those are the things that we should talk about. We talk about colonialism and we talk about understanding and women as allies, and we talk about education and awareness and all kinds of wonderful things, and we have fun doing it. So you're going to enjoy the interview, and you really will enjoy this film. So get out and see it if you can at Hot Docs. And don't forget, davidpecklive.com for more information about other interviews, about Hot Docs, filmmakers, and so on. You can find out more information on about my writing and my other podcasts there as well, and my speaking. You can also support what I do here with Face2Face through patreon.com. And don't forget rabble.ca as well. And you are going to love Vaishali Sinha and her new film, Ask The Sexpert. Well, welcome to Face2Face. We're joined by another very special guest today, another Hot Docs interview that I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects and a movie called Ask The Sexpert. Vaishali Sinha is here, the director, with us here today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So did you just get into Toronto? Is this your first visit?
Yeah, I got in yesterday. And actually hung out with some friends in Mississauga. And
nice.
Was also on a panel held by Film Fatales.
Oh, okay.
A network of women directors and filmmakers. That was really exciting, actually. It was moderated by Maya Gala, a Canadian documentary filmmaker, and we talked about the craft of filmmaking, and
nice.
Enjoyable.
Is this your first visit to Toronto?
No, it's actually I've been here multiple times. My first visit was in 2010 when I came here to premiere my first feature documentary, Made in India.
Oh, okay. Oh, excellent. So you know your way around.
You'd think so, but I don't know.
So Vaishali, it's hard to tell. What's your film about? The title doesn't give anything away.
I know. It really leaves you wondering.
It really does. Yes.
It's about sex, and because I'm such an expert on the topic, I'm here to talk. No, I'm kidding. No, it's the film is basically about. It's a character-driven film. It's a portrait film about a sex advice columnist from Mumbai, and who writes for a daily column.
Page 34, I think.
Page or 32 sometimes.
Page 32 or page 34. Yeah.
I love that you know it now, too. So he is a wildly iconic and popular figure over the last 12 years or 10 years since the column has been around. And there's a generation of young and old who have grown up, who have, lived with this column as a daily staple for men every day now. So, but also, the most important thing here is that he's 93 years old.
I know, it's just, and he so doesn't come across that way in the film. He just has a spring in his step and a real, there's a real passion about him and a real intentionality.
Absolutely, and
a love for life.
Great, yeah, I'm so glad all of that, comes across.
Oh, it really does.
Good.
But also a real character. I mean, some of the shots of him, typing responses or reading some of the emails, some of the questions that he's getting. He clearly, I mean, this is really important to him. There's no doubt, but he also either doesn't take the subject that seriously, or doesn't take himself maybe all that seriously. Is that a fair comment?
I think it's a fair comment. I think so. He's one of the reasons he's so popular, and this. You've seen the film, and he approaches the column with humor.
Yes.
At best as he can, given the question. Sometimes he does get fed up of the same question being asked of him for the zillionth time, but he's basically answering questions ranging from very basic questions around masturbation or not even sexual questions, really just permission-giving questions, to ranging to the outrageous. And so he's dealing with a variety of questions, and he thinks, the only way to deal with it is with humor, and but while also giving out very sort of scientific or useful information. And so that makes him really, that endears him to a lot of people.
And is he actually a doctor?
Yeah, he actually is a doctor. He is a retired gynecologist.
Right. That's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure. At one point, we had somebody. We've had a few people in over the years that have had different radio shows, and they call them doctors, and they're not necessarily. Right, just giving advice, and you kind of. I actually grew up with somebody who was a doctor, and found out many years later he wasn't actually a doctor. So that's brings up a whole lot of questions. But I think what's really lovely, and I love the way, this whimsical way that you approach the film and the subject, I suppose, and it really comes out and in the music and the dialogue and your editorial choices and so on. But I think it was W.C. Fields who once said in a conversation about sex, and I think the quote was something to the effect of, and you know what? And besides, the positions are ridiculous. It's just, there's something absurd about our humanity. There's something kind of goofy about it. That yes, it's serious. Yes, this is a part of who we are. Yes, this is a part of our humanity. But for crying out loud, how do we step back from that and go, let's maybe laugh a little bit here every now and then as well? Absolutely.
And I think, and why not? And one of the core things, so Dr. Vatsa, and that's the name of my central subject.
Mahinder is his first name, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dr. Mahinder Vatsa. His philosophy, he's not selling, or not selling at all, but he's not trying to kind of convince you of something very complicated. It's very simple. Sex is a happy event.
Right.
That's his core message. And also, kind of riffing off of that, It's Normal, which is the name of his book, and has been kind of his principle, because a lot of people come to him with dilemmas and confusions around, body issues, performance issues, etc. And really, he's just myth-busting or reassuring them that, whatever, you're fine, you're normal. And so, I think sex is a happy event is where he comes from, and yeah.
Well, it seems to me that some of the issues that these things can lead to, like you say, the body issues, the shame, the guilt. I mean, most of those things are not going to take us anywhere helpful at all as we, relate to ourselves and our own bodies, and more importantly, I guess, relate to others.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Yeah.
It's so you present you pull in I guess I would call her an activist, another woman who becomes a central part of the film, who I guess would be the moral voice. I guess you might almost call her that, or maybe what you're hoping is, as a director, that people are going to actually be redefining what this means to be moral. But is it really that polarized in the country, or would you say that we polarize this issue globally?
I would agree with you and say that we do polarize the issue globally. It's not just India. And, we also have to remember a lot of, not that I get into this in my film, there's only so many things one film can kind of take on and be about, but a lot of the problems that we face in India today, legally and morally, actually go back to a colonial time and the British Empire, and sort of leftover kind of judiciary sort of clauses that we have, etc. But so I would say that has had a lot to do with much of the murkiness and confusion today, and it continues in many ways in policies, Western policies of dealing with sexual and reproductive health worldwide. So it is very much a global issue, I think, and especially I live in New York now. In the U.S., it is very much a relevant issue today in terms of how people look at sex education. But in India, I think India is a very complex and interesting place. It's both progressive and conservative at the same time. And so I think this character in my film represents one very strong voice that's trying to keep its footing in a very traditional, claiming traditions and values. But at the same time, India is majority of country are young people, and if we all can jog our memories and remember what it's like to be young,
right. Which is getting harder for me to do every day. Yeah.
Well, I know with you. But someone, and I think this is our co-production partner, ITVS in the U.S., doing just a chat with them. Nolan Walker from, his name's Nolan Walker, filmmaker and funder. I was talking to him, and he said something very interesting, which is so true. How do you legislate sexuality? And you can't, and then it gives rise to controversy and a constant battle. So, yeah.
So, it's, I think the tendency to watch films about other places and other cultures is to sort of, there's always a tendency to sort of divide and to compartmentalize and say us, them. But what I think is so beautiful about the subject and your film is that, wow, we really kind of are all in this together, and we just recently in where we live, just west of Toronto, I grew up in Toronto, but we live west, and just a couple of years ago, and still kind of going on, all kinds of hell raised over a change in curriculum, in sex ed curriculum here, and you go, oh wow, we're open-minded here, us Canadians, and we're liberal here in the West, and so on, and we see it this way, but in fact, I don't know, maybe, and we're colonials too, so maybe there's a sense of that British prudishness or something that's coming to the surface. I don't know.
I think when in doubt, definitely go there.
That's right. Blame the British.
Blame it on the British.
Just blame the British. I mean, and I have a UK passport, so my father was British, so I feel like I'm Canadian and I've got a British, so I feel like I can do
Own
that.
it, David.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Call it out. And own it. Yeah. It's the step to healing, isn't it?
That's right.
A step towards healing. So, what do you do with critics who say, "Well, hang on a minute here. Some lines shouldn't be crossed. I mean, let's be careful here. Let's not get ridiculous about this. Let's show a certain and maybe morality is not the right word, but I mean, when it comes to sexuality, we're talking about choice." And hopefully making wise ones. And that, I think, is really what, Dr. Watts' work has all been about, really. So, yeah, I mean, there's a few questions, I think, sort of woven into that. But it's a happy event.
Yeah.
but what about, I don't know, is there a way that, how do you talk about gender disparity and division and so on in this context? Does that make sense?
I think I'll try to answer that, but you can always jump in and clarify.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is, Vaishali, how much of a sexpert you've become as a result of making this film.
I haven't at all. But
see, now you're owning that, so we're in good company here. This is good. Yeah.
Interestingly, I thought it was interesting. I mean, I thought, look, I'm liberal. I don't have biases and prejudices on these issues. Surely, how hard can it be to answer these questions? Right. If someone comes to me and I would say, sure, do whatever. This is okay, that's okay, no problem, get over it. But, it's watching him or someone like him do the work that they do was really eye-opening because you have to be. It was like watching someone really kind of skilled do what they do and make it look easy and effortless, but actually they come with years of understanding and cultural context.
Sure, yeah.
So that is actually not, so, I don't want to take that away from his job by saying how hard can it be, but it is not that easy to be. I guess any therapist's job isn't easy, really. But gender disparity, I think, one of the most interesting things about his work that I think is that I've noticed he's always had women as allies, and he's sort of followed their lead in a way that he's worked with women alongside women throughout his career of working on sexual health. He's been a pioneer of many things, but he's been successful in doing what he's been doing with women as his allies and sometimes as his bosses, if they're women hiring him for their magazines or newspapers. I think there's something really in there that is, that's of relevance of who he is and how he can understand women and keeps them in mind. And he's a feminist, and
right.
So I think there's a lot about that.
Well, I think there's a lot to be learned from that. There's a real generosity and grace, almost, to not only, and it comes out in the film, his body language even, the way he operates, the way he manages his personal space. I felt like that kind of came out. The way you show him sitting on the park bench at the end waiting for this young woman to take a selfie with him, which I thought was marvelous, by the way. What a beautiful kind of testament to what this man's life has really been all about. Dialogue and conversation and frankly, patience. And just kind of waiting for this young woman to come back. I thought it was utterly brilliant. But there's a couple times when he's got some, where you show him with patience, actual patience, and he says to, of course, your wife is very clever, or, you've got a clever wife. And you just get a sense that there's a real deep respect, not only for women, but for the other.
Absolutely. And it's just second nature, or like it's just there at all times, that ingrained sort of awareness and respect for the other and the partner. You're totally right. And he's very alert, he's very aware, and he always he listens, he says a few things.
Yeah,
he really listens, but he gets into the gray areas and say the right things. But often when I was interviewing him, I would, because he's so much older, sometimes I would kind of like repeat myself in the second time a little loudly.
Right.
And then I realized he didn't answer the first time around. He was probably thinking about his response or measuring or waiting.
Right.
It's not, nothing passes him by.
Oh, no, it strikes me like he's got a lot going on. Right. Yeah, he totally knows what. So why him and not somebody else? How do we get a Dr. Watsa in a colonial or a colonized culture, in a as the other woman, Dr. Natiani, is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she said something about we've got an 5,000-year-old civilization here. How do you get a Dr. Watsa coming out of that culture? Was it his parents? Was it was it the community that he grew up in? Did he just ask better questions than others?
It's an interesting question, and I did sort of try to dig deep there to really understand. I think, he was a child of like progressive parents or liberal conservative. I call my parents liberal conservative. Both sort of rooted in tradition, but also very open.
Right.
And he was also of a time when. But I think it's a good question, and I think it was a lot of things. But his father was a doctor.
Oh, okay. Yep.
His mother was, and both of them, his parents had traveled or kind of overcome situations in their own personal life that made them generous and open-minded and liberal. But and also as he progressed, he was also in the 70s. He was surrounded at a time when sexuality was being studied and worldwide, and I think he was just part of at some landmark moments, part of times that were that probably contributed to his career. But as far as I can tell, he has always been a part of, has been very liberal-minded. But which reminds me, I asked him, why did you want to be a gynecologist?
Right.
He just flippantly and jokingly said, I must have liked women, I don't know. And I'm like, but he said it sweetly, not to be a creep,
Sure.
or anything. But
well, when you're in your 90s, you can kind of get away with that stuff a little bit more.
That's right,
I think
you get away with that stuff
a little bit more. But also coming from a guy who's spent, it's about 40 years, isn't it?
Yeah, 60.
40 years, wow, of his life, speaking into this culture, education, something that's, banned in many schools, even at points, and it comes out early on in the film. I think it's so.
If I may, I wanted
go.
I wanted to say one more thing.
Yeah, please.
Which is in the film and to do with very briefly, but in the 40s when he was graduating from medical school, he was seeing a lot of patients, a lot of women, young women and teenagers who had back alley abortions done, or abortion was illegal at the time in India. It was only 1961 or 62 when abortion was legalized. But he was a gynecologist, and he saw many women die. This was also around the time that, medication, antibiotics were not that widely available, and women were losing lives because of the shame of admitting having been pregnant or had premarital sex, etc. So there was a lot of issues that he came across very early on in India during his time as a medical doctor that greatly contributed. But I've read magazines from when he was writing in the 1950s, and I've seen, having said that in the same breath, I've seen other doctors write with great bias towards women getting abortions, whereas Dr. Vatsa never held that same bias. So there's something where he's always actually been against the grain throughout.
Right.
Well, and always sensitive.
Because because as my listeners will know and friends understand, I'm all about sort of social change, and philosophy, and sort of going a little deeper and asking those questions that maybe others might not or might not be willing to. Why him and not someone else? Why her and not someone else? And it's always kind of fascinating to me how we wind up, where we wind up, if that makes any sense. But, I so love the fact that we've got a man in his 90s kind of schooling the younger generation. Yeah. It's so beautiful, the paradox of it, the apparent contradiction, and yet it's really quite marvelous in its paradoxical way. Sadly, we're going to have to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. I know we're on a bit of a time limit here, but the other doctor who you positioned with the opposing position, at one point she said, I think, here's the quote, I think, in India, if you want to bring change, you need lots of patience. Mm-hmm. Well, it seems to me that's exactly what Dr. Vatsa has brought to the table, and not only actual patients, the real people, the men and the women and so on, but he's had this maybe wisdom almost. Could we use the word wisdom?
I think so.
Yeah. I'd like to think as I'm getting older I'm going to become more patient, but sadly I'm finding that's not the case. Not yet, anyway.
You never know. We have all the way to 93 to find out.
I have a few years to go. Yeah.
I don't know if I'll ever make it that far. Actually, it's really incredible. He's a person of another time almost, and but no, this has been a lovely chat. Thank you so much. And I actually wanted to quickly clarify. He doesn't call them patients; he calls them clients.
He calls them clients. Interesting. Well, we've been talking to Vaishali Sinha today about her film Ask The Sexpert. World premiere tomorrow night at Hot Docs. That's Monday, May the 1st. Going to play on the 2nd and the 3rd. Is it going to go to theatrical release?
We sure hope so.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. What a wonderful film, and congratulations. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you, David. I appreciate your time.